Hello and good afternoon from Jakarta. Welcome to today's FPCI-GRIPS Virtual Public Forum on addressing geopolitical challenges in the region and beyond through ASEAN-led mechanisms. My name is Aure, and I will be the Master of Ceremony for today's event. This public forum is brought to you by the Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia and the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, GRIPS Japan. This is the first forum of this year's FPCI-GRIPS Virtual Public Forum series. We welcome our distinguished speakers for today's discussion. His Excellency Ong Keng Yong, the Executive Deputy Chairman of S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies and Secretary General of ASEAN in 2003 until 2007. His Excellency Robert Mateus Michael Tene, Deputy Secretary General for ASEAN Political Security Community in 2021 until 2024. And Professor Sutomu Kikuchi, Professor Emeritus at Aoyama Gakuin University. Along with our moderator, Mrs. Atika Nur Alami, FPCI Woman and Foreign Policy Fellow. Today, I am pleased to welcome over 370 participants from across 26 countries tuning into our channels. To name a few, Indonesia, Japan, the Philippines, Laos, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Brunei, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Timor-Leste. Today's discussion will dive deep into the main question of how ASEAN should more effectively use ASEAN-led mechanisms to resolve regional conflicts, while also addressing conflicts that are beyond the region. First and foremost, let us invite Ambassador Masato Watanabe, the Senior Fellow of GRIPS Alliance. Ambassador, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, this is Masato Watanabe from Tokyo. At the opening of the FPCI-GRIPS Public Forum, on behalf of GRIPS, I would like to say a few words, though it is going to be very disorganized and rambling. First and foremost, I would like to thank FPCI, President Mr. Dino Patijaral, and the leading panelist speakers from ASEAN countries and Japan for their participation today. Some of our panelists is sacrificing his holiday to participate this important event. Thank you very much for that. Now, there are no signs of peace being restored in Gaza and Ukraine. 2 days ago, there was a shocking assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump in the United States. Are we standing on the threshold of an era of uncertainty and instability? Turning to the ASEAN region, though the situation in Myanmar remains a concern, ASEAN has contributed to stability and development in Asia over many years. And in recent years, ASEAN has become one of the main drivers of global economic growth. As the world becomes increasingly multipolar, I hope that ASEAN, while maintaining its unity, will not only resolve issues within the region, but also take a proactive stance toward contributing to the world. I believe that ASEAN has accumulated a wealth of experience to make this happen. The EAS, one of the ASEAN-led framework, is an important forum for dialogue among leaders on important regional and international issues. And the ARF, ASEAN Regional Forum, is another forum aimed at improving the security environment in the region. The current international situation, unfortunately, is not conducive to consensus building due to hostilities, rivalry, and competition among major powers. But the key to seriously seeking ways to address geopolitical challenges, both within and beyond the region, lies in how these existing frameworks can be revitalized. In this regard, it is also important to mainstream the AOIP, which was agreed upon within ASEAN in 2019. To facilitate this trend, FPCI and GRIPS collaborated to hold an AOIP Vision Group conference in Bali in March. If we turn our eyes to the world, this year major elections were held around the world. In Asia, there was a series of high-profile elections, including the Indonesian presidential election and the general election in India. The results of the European parliamentary election in June and the National Assembly elections in France, the general elections in the UK were dramatic. The outcome of the US presidential election could affect US-European relations, even though the NATO alliance celebrated its 75th anniversary just last week. For the time being, European countries may turn inward with intra-regional and domestic issues. There are Russian moves to strengthen relations with countries in Eurasia, such as President Putin's visit to Vietnam. Attempts to challenge the status quo by force in the South China Sea and the effects of intensified competition among major powers must be kept in mind. In my opinion, for the maintenance of peace and security in the Indo-Pacific, it is important that there will be no change in the US emphasis on the Indo-Pacific in the future. Let me conclude my disorganized, rambling remarks by expressing my expectation that today's exchange of views among leading experts from ASEAN countries and Japan will provide good input for the ASEAN-led high-level meetings to be held in Lao PDR in October. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your opening remarks, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, allow me to invite our moderator to start the discussion. Mrs. Atika, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to FPCI, GRIPS, and also to Ambassador Masato Watanabe for having me. Welcome to FPCI-GRIPS virtual public forum on addressing geopolitical challenges in the region and beyond through ASEAN-led mechanism. I'm Atika Nur Alami, FPCI Women in Foreign Policy Fellow. I will be moderating today's discussion. This public forum is brought to you by Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia and National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies in Tokyo, Japan. Today, we're gonna have a great discussion on the utilization and effectiveness of ASEAN-led mechanism in addressing geopolitical challenges. Talking about ASEAN-led mechanism and its surrounding debates is always an interesting and relevant topics for us in Southeast Asia, as we know that ASEAN provides several ASEAN-led mechanisms such as ASEAN +1, ASEAN +3, East Asia Summit, and ASEAN Regional Forum. This mechanism serve as frameworks for ASEAN member states to cooperate with its non-member partners. However, there have been criticism of this mechanism and how it is still underutilized. Therefore, today's discussion will provide an opportunity for us to reflect on why the ASEAN-led mechanism should be utilized for the conflicts in the region and how the member states can effectively carry it out. Ladies and gentlemen, to address this interesting question, today's public forum will feature renowned and highly regarded panelists who are academic professors and ambassadors. They have great attention on ASEAN and its relation with non-member partners, including Japan. The panelists are first High Excellency Chairman of as Rajaratnam School of International Studies, or RSIS, and he was the Secretary General of ASEAN in the period of 2003 to 2007. Welcome, Ambassador Ong, to our discussion. It's an honor for us to have you here today. And another panelist is High Excellency Robert Mateus Michael Tene. He is the Deputy Secretary General for ASEAN Political Security Community from 2021 to 2034. Welcome, Ambassador Tene. Nice to see you. And for today's discussion, we also have Professor Sutomo Kikuchi, a professor emeritus at Aoyama Gakuin University in Tokyo, Japan, as our third panelist. Welcome, Prof. Kikuchi. Nice to see you. Now, before we begin the discussion, I would like to kindly remind all of the participants of some housekeeping rules. First, we respectfully ask participants to keep their microphones muted while the panelists are speaking. And secondly, you are welcome to raise questions either through the chat box or Q&A box, or you will also be given the chance to directly ask your question on your own during the Q&A session. And I think without further ado, let us now hear and discuss from our panelists on the topic of today's discussion, addressing geopolitical challenges in the region and beyond through ASEAN-led mechanism. Just to let you know that we will have 2 rounds of discussion and we'll continue to Q&A session. And let me start the first round of the discussion. So I will start my first question to Ambassador Ong Keng Yong. You had a great experience as the Secretary General of ASEAN in the period of 2003 to 2007. Can you share with us any success stories ASEAN had during your time in addressing security challenges? And in light of that, what actually your thoughts? Maybe you can take the example of how ADMM Plus and ASEAN Regional Forum in addressing some security challenges in the region. Please, Ambassador Ong.
Thank you very much, Atika. I hope all of you can hear me.
Yes, can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, directly to your question, the important thing about ASEAN is that we are always having a kind of agency. We have a certain challenger, a certain set of challenges, and then we ask ourselves, what can we do as individual ASEAN member states and as an organization called ASEAN? So during the year 2003, we were working together, ASEAN member states, to organize what we call the ASEAN Political Security Community. This basically is a collection of all the member states of ASEAN and coming together to tackle all the political and security-related challenges facing ASEAN. Of course, there are still many other things out there, but we focused at that time on the political and security dimension of our organization and how our organization can deal with some of these political and security challenges facing Southeast Asia. So we were very fortunate in that we have a group of very eager leaders of ASEAN member states, particularly President Megawati from Indonesia. They were very keen to make a difference and to organize the ASEAN Political Security Community. There were many discussions revolving around how each of us can deal with some of these challenges and what happens if there are differences among us and what diplomacy or what measures we can take to persuade our ASEAN partners outside of the organization to work with us. So the first step was to come to an agreement to have the ASEAN Political Security Community and what are the different characteristics of this community. And the process of getting the views of all member states and putting them together into a package that can be called an ASEAN position. When we did that, there were also other member states which were interested in the economic community as well as the socio-cultural community. So the first challenge for President Megawati, who was chairman of ASEAN at that time, was to get a consensus on how this ASEAN political security community will look like. What should the member state be talking about? How can we achieve some of the goals that we want especially in dealing with the big powers outside of ASEAN, outside of Southeast Asia, and how to meet the different expectation of these big countries, major powers in particular. So there was a lot of negotiation, how we can tackle each of these difficulty. But overall, there was a great deal of what I call leadership camaraderie. The leadership of all ASEAN member states at the time were all very happy to move along this idea of an ASEAN political security community. Of course, some of them, like my own country, Singapore, we are not ready at that time to talk about an ASEAN socio-cultural community. Yeah, and what should be covered under that ASEAN socio-cultural community. But the good thing about ASEAN is that 10 leaders from the Southeast Asian country, they may disagree one another, but they'll sit down and talk and find a way forward. This also happened under the leadership of Indonesia. All the member states of ASEAN came together and said, okay, we start now. We focus on political security cooperation, and then economic cooperation, and then social cultural cooperation. So we got that kind of political commitment from our leaders, and the officials were required to sit down and work through all the respective elements. And over the subsequent few years, we were able to knock together a set of different ideas into a plan called the ASEAN Political Security Community Blueprint. And since then, we have been implementing different part of this blueprint. And of course, as more and more issues outside of ASEAN came into the picture, we have to adjust from time to time. What can we do to respond as ASEAN? So I would like to say that after all these years, the ASEAN political security community is quite well established. The only thing is that we must now show to everyone what has been accomplished under this ASEAN political security community. Many scholars and media commentators would like to say that so far, whatever ASEAN countries have done, not too bad, because there is no open conflict among ASEAN member states, and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, because of the generally positive cooperative spirit among the ASEAN member states, in the political security community, the atmosphere in the economic community as well as the social cultural community was also generally healthy and cooperative. So that's where we are now. We have these three community pillars, and we are now working through all the respective elements to strengthen all the goals of the member states and to try to bring more concrete result to the population of ASEAN. At the same time, we also see many new challenges facing us as a region. Yeah, it's easy to say many of these challenges are outside of our region. So, it cannot achieve complete success immediately. But still, we have to work very hard. The dialogue and the planning, as well as the negotiation for specific document among all the 10 member states of ASEAN, have continued and sometimes very intense. But I feel that right now there is a desire to stay together, and hopefully, if everybody wants to remain as the ASEAN political security community, there will be a political will to work and overcome all those difficult parts of how we can carry out this agenda. So that's my response immediately to your first query.
Yeah.
Going forward, I think the important thing is that this political security consensus among all the leaders of ASEAN member states must be sustained. And now it's no longer as easy as we used to see in the 1970s or 80s or 90s, because each of ASEAN member states have democratized much, much more than what we were used to be. So this democratization process means there is a regular election cycle, new president, new prime minister, new minister will come in, and every time they might have to start all the steps and all the different lobbying and persuasion over and over again. I guess this is what we as a organization open to more democratic processes and ideas from different new governments in our respective country will have to face. It's not so easy and not so quick now, but I think there is enough reason for me to feel optimistic because something is moving. Yeah, it may not be in the quantity and in the quality that we want, but we are not remaining in the old days. So we are moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador Ong, for I think you mentioned in the firstly in your presentation about the agency of ASEAN through the establishment of ASEAN Political Security Community, which is quite a great achievement for ASEAN at that time. And despite lack of readiness of ASEAN member state, we finally agree to establish APSC under the leadership of Indonesia at that time. And I agree that we still have, challenges, lots of challenges in the midst of a complex situation, geopolitical situation. So at least we are moving forward. Thank you, Ambassador. And I think my second question for Ambassador Tene, during the Indonesia's ASEAN chairmanship in 2023, it established the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum to implement ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific, or AOIP. And based on your reflection, why Indonesia should establish the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum? Is the East Asia Forum inherently an Indo-Pacific Forum, which is quite, similar? Please give your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I begin, I just want to make a brief disclaimer. My term as the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN ended in February this year. So now I'm not the DSG of ASEAN anymore. And of course, I'm here on my own behalf. I'm not representing or expressing the formal views of any members of ASEAN. With that brief disclaimer, now I'll try to address the question you raised. The ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum is, of course, as you have mentioned, the implementation of the ASEAN Outlook of Indo-Pacific. So I have to touch a bit on the AOIP itself. But the AOIP itself is developed, or it came into being as a response to the challenges that we are facing. So I will start from the theme that we are of this meeting about the geopolitical challenge that we are facing. Now, we are quite familiar with all these geopolitical challenges that our region are facing. So I will not elaborate that. I just want to briefly summarize the type of geopolitical challenges that we are facing. First, of course, is the distrust among major powers, the deep distrust among major powers. And this distrust has sharpened, has deepened the strategic rivalry, the even confrontations, and the fault line in the regions among countries. The second type of challenges that we are facing, of course, is coming out from the overlapping claim of territorial sovereignty or territorial jurisdiction. And the third type of the security challenges that we are facing is the so-called non-traditional security challenges. Now, the AOIP was designed to respond to these challenges. How do we deal with the deepening of distrust, of increasing strategic rivalry, even confrontation, deepening of the fault line among countries? The narrative that the AOIP offer is cooperation. We want to promote and strengthen cooperation as an alternative narrative against the narrative of rivalry confrontations. Now, what type of cooperation that the AOIP envisage? If you look at the documents of the AOIP, it basically consists of two parts. The first part consists of the goal, principles, norms that we would like, ASEAN would like to promote in Indo-Pacific region. These are not new principles, not new norms, not something new that ASEAN invented. Instead, the principles, norms, and even objectives of that are contained in the AOIP, ASEAN Outlook on the Pacific, are the norms, principles, goals that all ASEAN countries, all of its partners, as well as friendly countries have already adhered to in previous documents. It also contains the universal principles that are also contained in the UN Charter and various other international conventions and resolutions as well. So it's nothing new. We are just repackaging it and give it a more context for that, for those principles to remain the main principles in the Indo-Pacific region. So relating to the narrative of cooperation, the AOIP is envisaging that the cooperation that we will like to carry out under the AOIP should be based on these principles, that the cooperation should further promote and strengthen the cooperation, this kind of principles. If you look at the various, the second part of the AOIP, which contain the actual type of cooperation that we are promoting, these are, again, not a new type of cooperation. We're talking about maritime cooperation, economic cooperation, achievement, attaining the Sustainable Development Goals, strengthening connectivity. These are not, again, a new type of cooperation. It already exists. And there are other forums which already address many of this cooperation that we are promoting in the AOIP. But the difference is that when this kind of cooperation are being carried out under the framework of the AOIP, it has also, this cooperation should be based on the principles that I have mentioned earlier. So the cooperation, the 4 areas of priority are aimed not only on achieving the tangible outcomes from each of the type of 4 priority areas, but it is also a vehicle to promote and strengthen the norms and principles that are enshrined in the first part of the AOIP. So the AOIP offered the narrative of cooperation as a counter to the increasing strategic rivalry and confrontations. Now, the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum is a means to bring about a concrete implementation of the second part of the AOIP, which is the 4 priority areas. It listed the various projects that are already underway or are in the pipeline, or even those who are still in the early stage of ideas. And the purpose is to bring them all together so that we have a comprehensive views about and picture about the type of cooperation that we can develop or already being developed in the Indo-Pacific region. And the list was very substantive. And the number of the values of those projects are also very substantive. This shows the potential of cooperation that exists in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, why is it the separate forum? Again, first of all, the Indo-Pacific Forum is focusing on concrete projects or projects that are already underway or in the pipelines. Why is it not being implemented under the framework of East Asia Summit? That's your question. While the AOIP itself has been accepted by all ASEAN members, all ASEAN partners individually, however, I think only until last year that the AOIP it was mentioned in the East Asia Summit statement. So there are, until last year, there are still certain hesitancy from some of the members of the East Asia Summit to bring the AOIP as one of the main platform of framework of cooperation under the East Asia Summit. Even though all the members of the non-ASEAN participant of the East Asia Summit has already accepted and support the AOIP in their bilateral relations with ASEAN. But when it comes to the East Asia Summit, there are certain hesitancy. But as I said, that last year in the statement of the East Asia Summit, for the first time, the AOIP are reflected in the East Asia Summit statement. So that means that hopefully going forward, there will be no hesitancy within the East Asia Summit framework to be used as one of the platform for the implementation of the AOIP. If I answered your questions, the East Asia Summit, of course, is envisaged in the AOIP as one of the important platform to implement the ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific. But it is not the only one, because the East Asia, the AOIP also envisage cooperation with several other sub-regional organizations that exist in the Indian Ocean as well as in the Pacific Ocean. Of course, the East Asia Summit is a very important platform if we can utilize it, because that is where all the major powers, all the important players who has the wherewithal, the resources to actually contribute positively for the development for the peaceful and prosperous development of the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador Tene, for your presentation and explanation. You identified some of the existing challenges in our regions, and you remind us about the narrative of AOIP, which is cooperation rather than rivalry and competition, and why we need a new platform, because you acknowledge there are still certain hesitancy, right, among Southeast Asian ASEAN member states on EAF, and hopefully
sorry, there's no hesitancy from the ASEAN member states. There is some hesitancy from the non-ASEAN participants of the East Asia Summit. But like I said, I think this issue should be resolved since last year the East Asia Summit has already already included the AOIP in its statement.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Yes, hopefully by having the new platform of ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum will really make it easier for ASEAN and dialogue partner or non-member partner to cooperate together. Thank you, Ambassador Tene. And I think my last question in the first round of the discussion is for Prof. Kikuchi. And continuing our previous discussion regarding the nature of East Asia Forum, how do you see the East Asia Forum addressing and playing its role in easing tension between the US and China? Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tia-san. Thank you very much. I'm quite happy to be here today. And rather than directly responding to your question, I would mention my own thought and introduce my own thinking about the future, how we could enhance ASEAN-related institutions in the coming years. I would point out three. First one is we need to, free ourselves from old-fashioned thinking about international relations. So in my understanding, the Indo-Pacific or Asia-Pacific is now in the early stage of development of new pluralistic international orders. That is composed of not only big powers, but also small and medium-sized countries. And ASEAN are expected to play a pivotal role in this pluralistic regional orders. So many people saying, we are, now today, big power politics, narrative of big power politics like U.S., China, competition or rivalries are quite popular. According to quite traditional, concept of international relations, big power defined regional orders. So in the Pacific context, U.S.-China relation, the defining impact on the future of Indo-Pacific. But this is not, I think, this is against the existing reality of the Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific is more than U.S. and China. There are, more powerful and influential countries now emerging in the Pacific regions. So we need this, reality. The second one is on the, in considering how to strengthen ASEAN-related institutions. I would raise one bit, a provocative argument. That is, ASEAN, as is well known, ASEAN have been claiming so-called ASEAN centralities in emerging regional architectures. But has this, conception or claim has been contributing the ASEAN playing pivotal role in shaping regional environment, the last few decades. It seemed to me that ASEAN, ASEAN centralities have been turning ASEAN more inward, not outward looking. And it appeared to me that ASEAN lost its flexibility in responding to many serious challenges of international relations of these regions, and also falling into so-called self-imposed traps due to its strong attachment to ASEAN centralities. And if you look at the Indo-Pacific as a whole, for the last more than 10 years, we have seen emergence of so many new development, political, strategic, and economic relations, and especially the emergence of so-called minilateral arrangement, the close cooperation among 3 or 4 countries like Quad, US, Japan, Australia, India, or AUKUS, and also some trilateral arrangement, including some of the ASEAN countries like India, Indonesia, and Australia trilateral cooperation mechanism, and so forth. And also bilateral alliance have been enhanced, and bilateral hub-and-spoke alliance system centered on Washington have been more, so-called regionalized, becoming networks types of security arrangement and so forth. So overall, as Mr. Austin of U.S. Defense Secretary mentioned at the last Shangri-La dialogue, we have seen emergence so-called lattice work types of new security architecture in Asia Pacific. And to my regret, ASEAN has not responded well to new development of emergence of the minilateral arrangement. And one of the reasons is ASEAN's strong attachment to their own traditional concept of ASEAN centralities. So I strongly support the pivotal role of ASEAN in shaping regional environment. So I think ASEAN centralities maybe how to say a bit by taking ASEAN centralities a bit backward, ASEAN may be able to develop more active regional, policies, regional relations. So this may pave the way for ASEAN to, move from rhetorical, centrality to substantial, centrality in evolving regional architecture of Indo-Pacific. And finally, I would speak a bit on AOIP. Already, previous speaker pointed out, including our Ambassador Watanabe. And I understand, AOIP is a quite unique document. It's not just, expression of ASEAN's, just cooperation with other countries. It's a quite strategic, document. By issuing the AOIP, ASEAN clearly demonstrate they would play a pivotal role in shaping regional orders of Indo-Pacific. So we welcome this ASEAN's, active engagement in that. But still, the ASEAN AOIP are still weak in terms of implementing the variety of agenda enshrined in the AOIP. So we already 5 years have passed since publication of the AOIP. So we need to review the AOIP right now, given many changes after the first publications. So I think, ASEAN need to, review the ASEAN mechanism to implement, and also including how ASEAN relate the implementation of AOIP with other, regional cooperative activities like, emerging unilateral arrangement and so forth. So that, the 3 points. I'm sorry, I don't directly respond to the question raised by chairperson, but before that, responding to that, I still thinking that we need to understand overall, the environment surrounding ASEAN related institutions. I would stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Kikuchi, for sharing your insights and critical assessment on ASEAN centrality. And you highlight how Indo-Pacific is actually more than US, China. There are lots of countries in Indo-Pacific, and you recognize the pivotal role of ASEAN in shaping regional. However, you raise some criticism on ASEAN centrality, which can be, kind of consideration, and ASEAN should move from a rhetorical centrality to more substantial centrality. Thank you for highlighting those issues. Okay, I think we had an engaging and fruitful discussion on the first round from sharing experiences from both Ambassador Ong and Ambassador Tene during their time in ASEAN, to the role of some ASEAN-led mechanism in dealing with tension and security challenges in the region, including South China Sea, but we should, discuss later. I think we will be moving to the second round of discussion that will focus on what we should do to utilize ASEAN-led mechanism effectively in the midst of a complex geopolitical tension in the region. So I will start again the second round of discussion from Ambassador Ong. Okay, now we will talk about ways forward for ASEAN-led mechanism. What is your general and maybe critical reflection on the AAS, ARF, and ADMM+? Do you agree that this mechanism should have some, kind of adaptation to fit with the current geopolitical context, and probably what kind of adaptation that is needed? Please, Ambassador Ong.
Well, thank you. I think it is necessary for us to think about how we can make these mechanisms that you mentioned more effective. And in that respect, we need to have one maybe diplomatic maneuver, which is that before the respective chair of ASEAN assume their responsibility, there should be some form of discussion among the respective chair and the chair-to-be to find out what would be a priority topic and how during the term of the respective chairmanship of ASEAN, we can realize the specific objective and the goals the respective chair country would like to have. Right now, the challenge for us is that every year we change our ASEAN chairman according to the alphabetical order of our official name of the country. And very often you see that there is a discrepancy in terms of what topic to be given priority, what issue should be addressed right away and to be continued from the previous chair. So in this respect, I feel that the ASEAN Secretariat, led by our Secretary General of ASEAN, can play a part in ensuring certain continuity. Currently, our chairman of ASEAN is Laos. Yeah. And previously was Indonesia. So between Indonesia and Laos, there are different significant activities and preoccupation of the respective government with regard to what chairmanship entails, what should be prioritized during the respective year of the chairmanship. There is, as I know, some coordination at the secretariat level with the respective officials from the ASEAN member states as they take over the chairmanship. But I feel that it is necessary for us to be more structured and maybe more organizationally focused when we pass the chairmanship over to the new ASEAN member country. Yeah. This way there will be continuity and maybe, of course, each ASEAN chairman can introduce its own priority and topics of certain interest during the year of the chairmanship. But some of the work left over from the previous few months should also be attended to and not be neglected. As though now that you are no longer chairman, whatever you do, that's past. Now I'm the new chairman, I do whatever I want. So if we can find a way and have the ASEAN Secretariat, led by the ASEAN Secretary General, organize themselves a little bit in this particular aspect, there can be a lot more coherent promotion of topics and projects and even specific big ticket item with our respective dialogue partner countries. I hope that this idea can be considered. I have not been directly involved in the secretarial work in the past 10 years or so now, but Michael Tenney, he just finished his term as a Secretary General, as his Deputy Secretary General. Yeah, maybe he can ascertain whether this idea I just proposed is useful or not. The other thing that we can do is to be prepared to negotiate with our ASEAN dialogue partners. Say, for example, now, if Laos is a chairman of ASEAN and there is a specific proposal that ASEAN member state as a group would like to do with, say, India, so what can we do with regard to continuity or to pursue the particular project with India after the Laos chairmanship? After Laos, who is the next chair? Malaysia, right? So perhaps we can organize our internal ASEAN working processes under the guidance of the ASEAN Secretary General and the ASEAN Secretariat to ensure that when Lao chairmanship is over. It goes on to Malaysia. The project that was already on the way during the time of the Lao chairmanship would not be slowed down or would not be forgotten. And then there is a kind of continuity. So basically, my point is that if you look at many of the specific initiatives, projects, the ambition of the respective ASEAN chair during each of the calendar year, there can be a bit more of family table discussion and see how a particular idea or project can continue from one ASEAN chair to the next ASEAN chair. Yeah. The habitual situation now is that people tend to just say, oh, Lao chair is over. Now I'm the Malaysian chair. I move to another area of cooperation with a specific dialogue partner country. And then whatever was left unfinished during the Lao chair will be left by the side. So that, in my opinion, will be a pity because there must be a good reason why all ASEAN member states supported the earlier proposal from the Lao chair to do something, say with Japan. Then under the Malaysian chairmanship, following the Lao chairmanship, this idea had been put on the shelf and maybe forgotten or left to other independent effort on the part of the Lao chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ong, for highlighting the significance of having continuity in deciding the agenda for each ASEAN chairmanship, and probably it could become the kind of the task of ASEAN Secretary General to really make sure that there is a continuity on agenda. And there should be more structure and maybe organizationally focused ideas or agenda in each chairmanship, including in our relation or our project with a dialogue partner, and how particular ideas or agenda continue to the next chairmanship. Thank you, Ambassador Ong. And maybe my next question to Ambassador Tene. Feel free if you want to also respond to Ambassador Ong, a proposal or suggestions, but I want to know about the ASEAN community. We know that following the adoption of ASEAN Charter, ASEAN undertook quite preparation for the implementation of the ASEAN community. How do you think that the ASEAN-led mechanism take a leading role in the forthcoming ASEAN community building process? Yeah.
When we talk about the ASEAN community building, of course, this is an ongoing effort. It will never end. It is an ongoing effort at community building. And there are, of course, the internal community building as well as the external elements of this community building. And both the internal and external elements of the community building are closely related. Why? Because we realize that, and it's a reality, that the prosperity of the ASEAN regions, ASEAN economies, relies not only of the development, the strength of its internal economies, but it is also reliant very much on the global economy. ASEAN is part of the mainstream of the global economy, global market, and we play an important role as well there. So in terms of prosperity, there are very close interlinkages between the internal economies of ASEAN and the global economies. And therefore, it is crucial for ASEAN to have an open relations with all the major powers, major economic powers, to ensure that our prosperity can continue to be maintained, as well as contribute to the prosperity of the global and regional, wider regional economy. Security-wise, it's the same. The security of the Southeast Asia is not only can not only rely on the security within Southeast Asia, but due to the geographic situation of Southeast Asia, of ASEAN as a whole, the security of our region are also very much affected by the security or the situation on the surrounding wider region that surround Southeast Asia or even the global situation. And therefore, ASEAN has to have a say. ASEAN have to be able to have influence on how the situation in the wider region surrounding Southeast Asia are being managed so that our interests can be taken into account. So this very close linkage between the internal community building of ASEAN as well as the external element of the community building is very much the mainstay or the cornerstone of the community building. That is why when you talk about ASEAN-led mechanism, there are of course mechanisms that are aimed for internal ASEAN community building to further strengthen, widen, and deepen the cooperation among ASEAN countries. But at the same time, these mechanisms that are internal ASEAN are also designed to be able to engage the external partners. For instance, we have the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting, but at the same time, the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting also have the +1 meetings with the foreign ministers of our partners, economic ministers as well, and other sectoral ministers as well. Aside from this +1 relations, we have also developed, we also try to bring our partners together to sit together, not only with ASEAN, but with themselves. And so we have the arrangement like the ASEAN Regional Forum, we have arrangement like the ASEAN +3, and we have arrangement under the East Asia Summit. And look at the ASEAN +3, for instance. We, as an, I think one of the important contribution of the ASEAN +3 is the emergence of the trilateral meetings between the +3 countries, although it's on and off. But I think it is a good thing that the +3 countries are able to meet from time to time whenever there is a need for them to meet to discuss the issues that are exclusive to their interests. And I think the ASEAN +3 as well as the various ASEAN-led mechanism contribute to this enhancement of trust, of confidence buildings that allow a trilateral summit among the +3 to be realized. We look at the East Asia Summit, for instance. I think this is the only forum globally, even not in the UN, where all the major powers leaders can sit together in the same table. It doesn't happen even in the UN. In the UN, when you have the General Assembly, high-level segments, they will come and go. The one will give a speech and then they go. But in the East Asia Summit, all the leaders sit together for 1.5 or 2 hours and listen to one another. Yeah. So the ASEAN-led mechanism plays an important role. Of course, from ASEAN perspective, the ASEAN-led mechanism has to serve the interests of ASEAN. And in serving the interests of ASEAN, there are the internal elements as well as the external elements. But why the partners are willing to join the ASEAN-led mechanism that are arranged by ASEAN for the partners to participate, because they see the merit of those the ASEAN-led mechanism as well from their own respective interests. And in fact, even though we are seeing now the emergence of many mini multilaterals, but you can read the statement of those mini multilaterals meetings. Most of them refer to ASEAN, acknowledging the important role of ASEAN. Perhaps the ASEAN-led mechanism cannot serve the whole gamut of the interests of our partners. And that is why on certain issues, they decided to create the mini multilateral arrangement or either bilateral or trilateral arrangements. But those unilateral or other type of arrangement does not or cannot replace the ASEAN-led mechanism, in which everyone comes together, in which in terms of inclusivity, everyone sit together, The other arrangement, of course, is very exclusive and very limited, but the ASEAN-led mechanism inclusive in nature, allowing everyone to come together and to exchange views and promote cooperation. It may not be effective in terms of the immediate results if we want to see immediate results, but at the same time, I think the importance of such a platform where everyone have the opportunity to sit together and hear and to engage with one another is something that cannot be undermined. So the community building ASEAN-led mechanism as in this part of the world is irreplaceable. No other platform have that kind of inclusivity that will allow everyone to come together and sit together. Now, if we talk about a bit about the effectiveness of this ASEAN-led mechanism in terms of dealing with conflict or dealing with the challenges that I have mentioned earlier, that is the topic of our discussion today. Of course, there are challenges that are internal ASEAN, Southeast Asia, for instance, like the situation, the current situation in one of our member states. It is an internal challenges of ASEAN. And also ASEAN has to deal with the other hotspots in the region, as well as the overall climate of distrust among the major powers that also affected the whole region. Now, the ASEAN-led mechanism is, as Ambassador Ong Keng Yeong mentioned, it is not designed in a very rigid way or very detailed way. Yeah, we don't have a particular mechanism, for instance, on how to prevent conflict, or we don't have a mechanism on how to prevent or to resolve conflict. The only thing that we have, for instance, and it only applies for a more limited, in a more limited sense, is the Treaty of Amity on Cooperation, where we have the mechanism of High Council. We have the mechanism for good officers and mediation. I think that is the only instrument in ASEAN that actually address a specific form of preventive diplomacy as well as conflict resolutions. But, well, some can see this as a weakness, but I think at the same time, this loose arrangement under the ASEAN-led mechanism provide a flexibility. But the flexibility, whether we can make use of the flexibility, I think it really depends very much on the role of the chair of ASEAN. I think when Ambassador Ong Keng Yeong talk about the continuity of one chairmanship to another, implicit to his argument is the important role of the chairman of ASEAN to make use of the flexibility that are inherent in the ASEAN-led mechanism, which at the same time also invest to the chair of ASEAN much greater responsibility to take the initiative. And so I think there are, without having to make a lot of changes in the ASEAN-led mechanism, as long as the chairman of ASEAN has the willingness, has the capabilities and support from ASEAN member states, there are a lot of things that they can, the chairman of ASEAN can do to promote the prevention of conflict, management of conflict, or even, efforts to some steps towards conflict resolution. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador Tene, for bringing up some important points. You mentioned about the ongoing process of ASEAN community building, which have, kind of internal and external process. And you recognize that other platforms cannot really replace ASEAN-led mechanism because of its inclusivity in nature, and everyone can come together and engage one another, and there is possible exchange of views. And you raise, make points also about the nature of ASEAN-led mechanism, that that is not designed in a very rigid way. So more loose engagement, which provide a flexibility, and it depends on the chairmanship of the ASEAN that can use the flexibility. Thank you. And I think my last question is for Professor Kikuchi, which is about ASEAN Regional Forum. As we know that ARF is a forum formed by ASEAN in 1994 as a vehicle for dialogue and consultation on matters related to politics and security in the region. However, there is a belief that ARF is still underutilized. So what should ASEAN member countries do to advance multilateralism in the Asia-Pacific region? Please, Prof.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think, now today, so many countries have been publishing so-called Indo-Pacific visions or Indo-Pacific strategies. And also we are talking about what future regional order of Indo-Pacific. And in my presentation, I mentioned, AOIP. AOIP, the only ASEAN's, commonly endorsed documents how to deal with Indo-Pacific, the regional affairs. So I think, in the coming years, I hope ASEAN member countries further focusing on how to implement and update the AOIP to, realize more peaceful and prosperous Indo-Pacific regions. And also, as I mentioned in my presentations, I think, ASEAN may need to upgrade or review the AOIP, after already, 5 years passed since its publications. And also, as part of the, at the previous session, we discussed the EAS. Probably ASEAN country, we hope ASEAN countries more closely identify the relation between AOIP and East Asian Summit. And probably East Asian Summit would provide the best venue for to implement the AOIP. So last year's Indonesia hosted the Indo-Pacific Forum, but in the coming years, that Indo-Pacific Forum may be included a part of East Asian Summit process and so forth. And also, the ARF also, unfortunately, today, now is the Indo-Pacific regional security have been, tense and tense, but, almost nobody mentioned about the role of ARF to, moderate the current tensions. So I think, ARF also should be reviewed to be, a part of the broader East Asian Summit, institutional structure of East Asian Summit. And I think, India's ASEAN's, engagement in Indo-Pacific will be more, focused on the process of East Asian Summit. And also, if, necessary, we hope ASEAN countries, consider some co-chairmanship of East Asian Summit process with, non-ASEAN member countries. And also, as ARF or AOIP, pointed out 4 policy agenda, including maritime security and connectivity and so forth. So EAS, under the leadership of the political leaders, established a working group on each, policy agenda enshrined in the AOIP, and that also should be, co-chaired with a non-member country. And all, the result of this working group should be reported to the annual, East Asian Summit meeting and so forth. But anyway, I think, AOIP is a quite, important strategic documents. So we hope ASEAN, further, brush up the process and mechanism to implement AOIP together with, the countries that have interest in implementing AOIP in cooperation with ASEAN. Thank you very much.
Okay, Thank you, Prof. Kikuchi, for making also some important points on the importance of ASEAN in its engagement in the Pacific. Really need to focus on the process of East Asia Summit, and AIP is really an important document, and hopefully there should be like a more implementation on the AIP itself. So I think we are now moving to the Q&A session. I will kindly remind rules before the Q&A session. We respectfully ask participants to keep their microphones muted while the panelists and maybe other participants asking. You are welcome to raise question through the chat box and Q&A box, and you can also directly ask your question on your own during the session now. And due to time constraint, we ask participants to deliver their question concisely, and if possible, direct your question to one speaker only. Maybe I will read several questions, maybe 2 or 3 questions. According to the question in the chat box. First, from Edwin, with Malaysia wanting to join BRICS and maybe another Mekong country, will ASEAN centrality be affected? Will ASEAN non-alignment be impacted by countries wanting to use BRICS to challenge the Western alliance? So maybe Prof. Hello, maybe Prof. Kikuchi are happy to answer about the ASEAN centrality on this context. Please, Prof.
Thank you very much. I don't think, Malaysia and Thailand are reported to apply the BRICS membership, and also on the other hand, Indonesia and the Thailand are applying OECD membership, and I think this in case of the OECD membership, it's quite good to upgrade the economic governance structure of the respective countries. So I think mostly welcome for those countries to be further engaged in global economic good governance and so forth. And BRICS is a quite strange institutions. For some countries, BRICS is an institution fighting against Western-dominated international societies. But on the other hand, the BRICS just providing new economic opportunity and so forth. But frankly, actually, the BRICS has a variety of membership. Right now, no coherent institutional identity among member countries, and in the foreseeable future, probably BRICS countries quite difficult to find a common identity, institutional identity. So joining BRICS what kind of benefit provide the membership is still uncertain in the coming years. So it's not directly negative impact on the ASEAN's unity or ASEAN's cooperations or ASEAN's centralities. In this context, ASEAN centrality among ASEAN countries. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Okay, I see some participants raise their hands. So Mr. Fallen would like to deliver your question directly, please. Please make it concisely. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is my voice audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so it's Van Valegas. I would like to ask a question to Professor Robert Matheus. So, given the diverse political systems and economic disparities among ASEAN member states, what are the main obstacles this mechanism face in promoting internal community building, and how are these being addressed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fallen. So, is the question for
Okay.
Ambassador Tene about the obstacle of ASEAN-led mechanism. Please.
Thank you. First of all, I'm not a professor, so and just call me Michael, by the way. Right. Well, the ASEAN, of course, consists of a diverse member states with diverse interests. At the same time, also they share many common interests as well. And I think you can say that the diversity can be a weakness, but I think in most cases, the diversity of ASEAN member states is actually the strength of the organization. That is why the principle of consensus is very important, so that all these diverse interests can be accommodated. And I think ASEAN countries have shown their maturity. For instance, some countries, some initiative may not be their priority, but they are willing to accommodate the interest, the priority of others. I think as long as those activities does not have negative impact to them, or if the impact is very much limited, something that they can absorb, they're willing to provide the consensus. Yeah, of course, on other issues, they will expect the same attitude from other countries to also consider their core interests and accommodate the core interests of ASEAN countries, of the other member countries. So this kind of arrangement, which are based on consensus, I think it's a reflection of the strength. Of course, that means that we have to, in many cases, we have to use the least common denominator. Yeah, that as a basis of the consensus. And this means that sometimes things are moving not as fast as we want. Yeah, but the benefit, I think, throughout the years, the benefit of this consensus arrangement exceeds the shortcomings, and it has, now everyone talk about ASEAN as a model of one of the more successful model of regional organizations. I think this speaks itself about the success of ASEAN, and we can only achieve this if we maintain this kind of flexibility, consensus based. Look, Indonesia is the biggest country in ASEAN. I think by any measures, Indonesia is already like at least 1/3 of ASEAN by any measures, yeah, or even more. And we have many very small countries in ASEAN. But all these countries can work together under ASEAN because of this tolerance, because of this accommodation, understanding of the core interests of each member states, and the willingness for everyone to accommodate one another's core interests and to promote the common interests of everyone. So I think that is the basic way we deal with the question that you raised, and that is also why you see the ASEAN arrangement, as I have alluded earlier. It's quite flexible. Yeah, and I think the flexibility of the various ASEAN-led mechanisms, as well as the consensus-based decision making, is one of the strengths and the key reason why ASEAN has been successful in the past and hopefully in the future as well.
Thank you, Ambassador Tene, for answering the question. Maybe I still have one more question. Maybe I will direct the question to Ambassador Ong. From Igusti Putu Narendra, during the 26th of ASEAN Summit in Jakarta 2023, Indonesian President Joko Widodo emphasized the importance of implementing the AIP to align with the China's BRI mechanism. However, there is an analysis from some economic observers that the BRI is driving Indonesia into a Chinese debt trap through the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail project. What should ASEAN countries do, especially Indonesia, so that the cooperation with China in the AIP and BRI mechanism can produce balanced benefits so as to avoid the potential for entering into a debt trap in the future? Please, Ambassador Ong, to respond to the question.
Thank you, Atika. Well, I think when we use the term debt trap, we have to be careful what is meant by the term debt and what is the term trap covering. I don't think Indonesia, as such a big member country of ASEAN, can easily be described as heavily indebted to any particular countries in our region, even though China, of course, has great financial muscles and have made loans to many people, loans to many countries. The important thing is going forward, how do we, individually as ASEAN member states and collectively as ASEAN, advise each other on what can and cannot be achieved when we cooperate with other ASEAN dialogue partners. Yeah. So I don't think we really need to be overtaken by all this concern of the so-called debt traps. Yeah. The important thing is for Indonesia, in this case, as an example, to process all the necessary details, and China on its own will also be careful. Indonesia is not Sri Lanka. Yeah. Indonesia is not any African countries requiring tremendous amount of Chinese foreign aid money. So I think we should be conscious of that. But going forward, I think there are always ways in which we can find balance in our cooperation with big financing parties such as China. Yeah, it's just how we can organize the structure and the rules and the progress in the recipient country. So I believe that in ASEAN family, we have already quite a few specific examples of how we utilize contribution of financial element from dialogue partner countries, as well as those business conglomerate from the dialogue partner countries such as China. Yeah. The important thing is don't be overwhelmed by large amount of money. Just make sure that we have the proper accounting processes and the monitoring of progress with regard to any project. Of course, for any project, Michael and others at Kikuchi were also aware of this, are also aware of this. We have to do the feasibility study properly and to see how it can be financed and how it can pay eventually for all these investments put in by the financing country as well as by the recipient countries. So I am not too concerned about how do we organize our ASEAN member states to prevent our ASEAN member states from falling into the debt trap. But I think what is more important is for us as individual ASEAN member state and maybe as ASEAN organization as a group, we have some good reference point on how to measure the project's feasibility, how do we receive the financial support, and how do we have a systematic way of repaying all this project money. So this, again, we can say ASEAN, we can organize ourselves and perhaps put out a proper piece of advice and practical what we call background and procedure to ensure that debt trap will not be troubling our ASEAN member states. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ong. Okay, maybe I will read one last question for all panelists. The question is from Rania. What do you expect the ARF and ES meetings to focus on in the ASEAN Summit in October? Is there any particular issues that the meeting should prioritize? Maybe each of the panelists could briefly answer the question. Maybe I can start from Prof. Kikuchi. Please, Prof.
Yeah, I think, we probably, frankly speaking, we need to raise the profile of ASEAN in dealing with geopolitical challenges facing in the Pacific. So in that context, I think, we need some step, even if it's a quite small step, to deal with directly ASEAN process, directly touch on the pressing security issues, such as South China Sea. So it's a bit, disappointed, last ASEAN summit never, in a joint statement, never mentioned the defer to South China Sea issues. And today, South China Sea is not, just independent, regional issues. It's very closely connected with other, regional conflict and tensions. And so I think, now is, handling the South China Sea issues getting more and more difficult. So I think, we need, even if ASEAN countries are brave enough to, tackle with such a difficult, question. So we hope the next ASEAN meeting will demonstrate now, or ASEAN are now quite ready to, dealing with such a difficult question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Kikuchi, for highlighting the importance of security issues in South China Sea to be discussed. And Ambassador Tene would like to maybe respond on what should be the agenda for the ASEAN Summit in October.
Well, I'm not privy to the the preparation for the forthcoming summit or ARF meeting, but look, recently, of course, many experts have raised questions about the relevance of ASEAN. Many of these, actually, all these questions arise from I think, from the over expectation of what ASEAN can do. They expect too much beyond what ASEAN has are able to deliver. But at the same time, I think there is a merit to what they are saying. Look, for ASEAN to be relevant, it has also taken into consideration the how it views the situation that is affecting not only ASEAN but also the wider region. And I think whether although ASEAN we don't have a common foreign policy, but I think the expectation from the global community, from our partners, will increase that ASEAN should have views on those development. Increasingly, for ASEAN to be seen as relevant, ASEAN is expected to share its views, how it sees the development on the global setting or in a wider region. So I think going forward, whether ASEAN like it or not, it has to remain relevant. Increasingly, ASEAN has to be able to come to a consensus views internal ASEAN on how ASEAN views the important development that are affecting the global community, that are directly or indirectly will also affect the interests of ASEAN. So I think in the various forum going forward, we will see more and more ASEAN's position being reflected on the various issues that are of interest, of concern for the global community as well as for the countries in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Tene, for highlighting the relevance of ASEAN. And I think the last panelist, Ambassador Ong, probably would like to respond on what should be prioritized in the ASEAN Summit in October.
Well, the important thing about the summit coming up is to ensure that our successor plan for the ASEAN community building, and the vision that we have at the end of this community building process are all well accepted by the member states. It's not easy to get 10 of us, and now very soon to be 11, because Timor-Leste will join ASEAN sooner than later. So there are 11 countries involved. How do we agree on prioritizing our multifaceted community building program and activities? Yeah. And number two, how can ASEAN maintain its centrality in the midst of so many global problems and challenges? People don't understand enough of what's the meaning of centrality of ASEAN. Yeah. It basically means that there are issues and certain developments that we, as a grouping of ASEAN member states, must consider as ASEAN. Then there are other issues which are left to the individual independent member states to decide what their national position is. So my frequent point is that ASEAN wear two hats, each of our member states in ASEAN. One is the national hat, whether I want to join BRIC, or I want to stay with what other organization which have given the country certain benefit, or should ASEAN think about how to give better rewards for the members coming together as ASEAN? All these things have to be considered in its proper context. It's not easy, but each of us will have to measure ourselves first by what is important for our national interests, and then two, what is important for the regional organizational interests, here in this case, ASEAN interests. So, ASEAN is already now many decades old. We will find a way to move forward. It may not be simply accepted by our people in the region, but, well, they voted in the president or the government of the day, and now they have to take the responsibility of carrying out how to manage all these multifaceted challenges vis-a-vis organizations such as ASEAN and vis-a-vis their own national interests. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador Ong, for your final answer. Okay, I think because we run out of time, we need to end our today's discussion. To conclude our discussion today, I would like to invite all speakers to provide their brief closing statement on the future of ASEAN-led mechanism in responding to geopolitical challenges. Please, maybe I can start from Prof. Kikuchi. Please, Prof, a brief closing statement.
Yeah, I have been, studying ASEAN's, the history more than 30 years, and I have been engaged in many ASEAN-related activities. So I sincerely hope ASEAN demonstrate further, its own institutional effectiveness in addressing many challenges facing us. Our challenge is quite serious to address, but even so, ASEAN have been overcoming many difficulties for the last several decades since its establishment. But I hope ASEAN continuously renovate its institutional structures and contribute to peace and stability of the entire Indo-Pacific region. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Kikuchi. And Ambassador Tene, would like to deliver your brief closing statement, please.
ASEAN has been considered as a successful regional organization. But I think success also bring about greater success, bring about greater responsibilities, both for the internal ASEAN community building, as well as in terms of its external implication and its responsibility to the wider region surrounding Southeast Asia, as well as to the global environment. So I think going forward, the work of ASEAN will increase. It is not possible for ASEAN only to focus internally. And even internally, I think there will be the ASEAN cooperation will continue to deepen and to widen as well. But at the same time, also, we will have to bear the responsibility as a as responsible, as a positive factor for a global peace and prosperity. And we have to play that role whether we like it or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Tene. And last but not least, Ambassador Ong, your brief closing statement, please.
Well, yeah. I think through the last few decades, we have shown that ASEAN is a cheerleader for multilateralism, a cheerleader for testing new ideas in a regional body such as ASEAN. So I think we should continue this role as a cheerleader, as a test bed, because what is there? If we are proclaiming ourselves to be open and inclusive, we must continue with what we are doing and bring about more concrete understanding of multilateralism, the benefit of multilateralism. And I think if we do that, we will bring more respect to our own organization from the developed powers, the big powers, China, America, Russia, whatever. Yeah, I think this is important because we have more than 50 years of a relatively positive track record for ASEAN. And that's because we are the cheerleader for multilateralism, for open and inclusive regionalism. And at the end, our member states all benefited in one way or another. Yeah, there are some problems here and there. Yeah, which family, which man and woman does not have any problem? If you can show me a happy man or happy woman with no such problem, then I think I would commit a big error here. But I don't think that is possible. We just have to manage our challenges on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador Ong. Finally, thank you, Ambassador Ong Keng Yong, Ambassador Robert Matthews, Michael Tene, and Professor Sutopo Kikuchi for such an interesting discussion. I also thank you, the audience, for the questions. I think I will not conclude because lots of important issues that we have discussed. We think that ASEAN is still relevant, and we need to enhance the relevance of ASEAN and how ASEAN-led mechanism can really advance ASEAN's interest to bring more prosperity and peace in the region. Okay, I think I will hand the floor back over to the MC to close today's event. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Atika, for moderating today's discussion. And thank you to all the speakers for sharing your incredible insights. Before we wrap up the event, I would like to invite the speakers and everyone else for a short photo session. We will be taking the pictures 3 times, and it will be based on my count. Okay, on my count, 1, 2, and 3. The second one, 1, 2, and 3. And the last one, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, thank you, everyone. It has been a fruitful discussion, and I'm sure the audience found the session interesting and highly informative. Today's event is available for rewatch on FPCI's official YouTube channel at Secretariat FPCI. You may fill in the form sent by our committee in the Zoom chat box to get your certificate of participation for today's discussion. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can follow our social media handles for more information about our activities, events, and programs. Stay tuned to our next FPCI-GRIPS virtual public forum via Instagram or Twitter at FPC Indo. See you at the next FPCI event and enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, Atika-san, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ong.
Ambassador
Kikuchi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sutomo-san. Thank you, Atika.
Thank you.
Oh, Dino-san.
Pak Ong.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dino-san, thank you. Yeah, I'll be back to Jakarta.
In our next event.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent discussions.